Hello there, good evening from Monday's Look North. Tonight, a bold message against knife crime. A statue made from 100,000 seized knives goes on display in Bradford. A bereaved family hope it will stop young people carrying blades.
It's really bittersweet. It's like solidarity for all victims of knife crime.
But it comes as another teenager is stabbed to death in Leeds. We'll have the latest. Also tonight, police in Bradford target the illegal moneylenders who keep families in fear. Back on board, 3 years on from lockdown, passenger numbers are back to pre-Covid levels for the London to Yorkshire line. And Rob Burrow takes a trip to the Cobbles as Coronation Street tackles MND on screen.
And we can look forward to another glorious day tomorrow, but change is afoot after that. Join me for the week ahead forecast.
Hello, thank you for your company this evening. It's a striking image, isn't it? A sculpture made from 100,000 seized knives on display in Bradford. It's a monument to those who've lost their lives to violent crime. West Yorkshire Police recorded 2,400 serious offences involving a knife last year. Knife crime cases in our region have almost doubled in a decade, and it comes as police in Leeds released details of the latest victim, 18-year-old Jamie Meir, who was stabbed in a taxi on Friday. Kathy Killick has our top story.
Towering way above the reach of ladders, a symbolic unveiling of a statue with an urgent and powerful message. The knife angel is made of 100,000 knives confiscated or surrendered in knife amnesties. Each blade represents both a rejection of violence and a reminder of the awful damage knives can cause.
30% of the knives that are on the angel were bloodied when we received them. They all had to be sterilised. It is a stark reminder that there is a severe problem here in the UK, but it is also a light to follow, gathering us all together and making us stand against violence in all its forms.
It's young people in particular that the angel is aimed at. Some carry knives for protection, but end up being harmed.
If you carry a knife, that knife will be used at some point, either against you or against someone else. And it's trying to build confidence in young people to talk to adults and to talk to the police when they feel unsafe, and also to say, you don't need this knife in your life, hand it over.
The warnings couldn't be more relevant. On Friday, 18-year-old Jamie Meir was stabbed in Armley in Leeds. He died later in hospital. He'd been attacked in the street in broad daylight by suspects carrying knives. He joins a heartbreaking list of young victims dying too soon and leaving families devastated. Kelly Hubbard and her daughter Bryony Gledhill grieve for their adored son and brother Bradley Gledhill.
Look at that one with his tongue out.
He was stabbed to death in 2020 in an unprovoked attack by a gang of 6 youths. All were jailed for well over a decade each for their part in his murder.
Just simply don't do it, because the devastation, you know, in the heat of any moment, look at the devastation it leaves behind for innocent people.
When you are going and putting that knife in someone else, it's not just that person's life that's being taken, it's your own, because you're going to be spending the rest of your life in jail.
It's us that have got the life sentence, though. We're living the life sentence.
That a 20-year-old should leave only memories for his family is beyond cruel. He was killed with a small vegetable knife, proof that no blade is harmless. Some of the knives in the knife angel are etched with messages from the bereaved, joining a wider message conveyed by the statue that carrying knives can ruin lives. They must be left at home. Kathy Killick, BBC Look North, Bradford.
Next tonight, we're going to talk about loan sharks because there's concerns that more people could be turning to them as they struggle with the rising cost of living. Now, the latest operation by England's illegal money lending team saw a suspected loan shark being arrested in Bradford. Up to 1 million people are thought to be in debt to illegal money lenders, and a new report says fears for reprisals is stopping many of them speaking out. Here's our social affairs correspondent, Emma Glasby.
It's early morning in Bradford.
Police, open up!
Supported by police, the illegal money lending team is targeting a suspected loan shark, thought to have been intimidating vulnerable people. A man's been arrested and his home is being searched. This type of enforcement is happening every week across the country because loan sharks can leave people terrified.
It's not a community service. It is criminals getting rich on the backs of those that can least afford it. And that's what we see time and time again. We know that illegal lending is going on across all our communities, and we're always concerned in a cost of living issue that this has potential to grow, and certainly in areas where there might be some deprivation. We've seen illegal lenders operating who exploit.
And this is just one estate where loan sharks have been befriending and then exploiting people struggling with the cost of living. In Stradbroke in Sheffield, it's an ongoing problem that's causing misery.
We've had illegal money lenders on this estate for as long as I can remember. It's quite an easy trap to get into. You've got nowhere else to go. So where would you get money from if you're really skint and you need money? You've got no choice.
Helen is part of the Link Community Hub on this estate, a charity helping with food parcels, counselling and debt advice. Things are difficult here.
At the moment, poverty is overwhelming. It overwhelms us. We've never seen poverty levels as extreme as we're seeing at the moment. They're having to cut down on food. They're going without food. They're going without the prescriptions. Legal money lenders will know that, won't they? It'll be a fantastic time for them. They couldn't wish for a better time. And as I said, they come onto the estates, they befriend people who haven't got any alternatives than to use them.
Here, they've seen the misery and anxiety caused by loan sharks, and a fear that means people are afraid to talk about it. This woman's words are spoken by an actor.
I owe him a lot. I get my universal credit and it nearly all goes to him. I have to go and borrow off my family and they get fed up with me asking. If I don't pay, I'll get a beating off him. But it's my family. I don't want them getting hurt by him.
The Centre for Social Justice estimates that more than 1 million people in England are in debt to loan sharks, but they're often reluctant to report them, making investigations that much harder. Emma Glasby, BBC Look North.
I'm joined now by Matthew Greenwood. He's head of debt at the Centre for Social Justice, which campaigns on this very issue. Matthew, we just heard from a woman there whose whole universal credit goes to a loan shark. Just give us an idea of how much interest they're charging people.
Well, so I think that there are a whole range of loan sharks that charge a whole range of interest. We've seen cases where quite a common one is what we would call double bubble. It's where loan sharks, say, lend you £50 and they require you to pay £100 back. And if you don't pay that back, you owe £200 and £400 and so forth. We've seen lenders who simply just do not concern themselves with how much interest they charge. They charge whatever they want whenever they feel like it.
And talk us through some of the tactics to get people on board borrowing this sort of money in the first place.
Well, so I think that we really need to move away from this view of a loan shark as someone who sort of looks like Phil Mitchell or someone in EastEnders at the moment who is a loan shark. Actually, we've seen illegal lenders across the country who fit, every sort of demographic. We've seen people that might resemble your grandma. We've seen people who just meet other mums on the playground. The key thing that matters here is that the illegal lenders know people are vulnerable, they offer them money, and they have an intention to get as much back as they can.
And as we heard there, people are reluctant to report the loan shark through fear that they'll get targeted, they'll get attacked. How do you solve this issue?
So I think there are a number of things we can do, and I think that the first thing we need to do is we need to talk about how we talk about our money and when we seek debt advice. At the moment there's an understanding, I think, that generally people don't seek debt advice until they feel they've hit breaking point. But actually, if they sought debt advice far earlier than that, there's an opportunity to be able to tell your advisor and to get rid of these issues. The other thing that we really need to do is we need to improve resourcing for the illegal money lending team. We have one crackpot team in this country, in England, that is able to really deal with illegal lending and to help people that are suffering, and they know their stuff. And I think it's time the government gave them more funding to be proportionate with the cost of living crisis.
Matthew, thank you for your time. I think what he's saying there is that there is an alternative. People have other means to turn to. Thank you for your time. You're watching Monday's Look North, still to come on tonight's programme. Finally remembers thousands of RAF servicemen from the Caribbean who trained near the town during World War II with a little help from Look North. The Prime Minister travelled to Leeds today and said that victims of grooming gangs have been ignored because of political correctness. Rishi Sunak announced a task force to help police but didn't mention any new funding. Labour called it inadequate, and one of the hundreds of abuse survivors from Rotherham told Look North victims have been used as a political football. David Rhodes reports.
Over the past decade, there have been 5 different Prime Ministers and 6 different Home Secretaries. Every administration has pledged that lessons would be learnt from the horrors that saw children in Rotherham groomed for sex on a so-called industrial scale.
How old was that?
He was about 17, I think.
Today, the Prime Minister visited a charity in Leeds to announce a new plan.
That's what we're announcing today, a new expert police-led task force, tougher sentencing and a new legal duty on those working with children to report abuse.
For decades, over 1,000 children were groomed and exploited in the South Yorkshire town. Many of those convicted so far have been from a British Asian background. The government says it plans to collect more data on the ethnicity of those who prey on children.
We have to be honest about the fact that some of these gangs have been overwhelmingly British Pakistani males. The authorities, whether that's social workers or teachers or police officers, when they've become aware of these problems, have turned a blind eye.
Ethnicity is not a reason not to come down hard and shouldn't be. So the government's right about that. But on the other hand, the government needs to recognise that that's a small proportion of the cases we're dealing with.
Politicians today are talking about events that happened in this town more than a decade ago. However, we've spoken to people here in Rotherham who tell us child sexual grooming gangs still exist. Many forces are still dealing with historical allegations, but last year 484 sexual grooming offences were recorded in Yorkshire.
Things have improved. More cases are being brought to court. The ladies that I represent constantly complain that their cases take too long, and more input in terms of investigators and the court process in terms of more trials more quickly would certainly be welcome to them.
Today's announcements have been made against the backdrop of the local elections. Conservative politicians have blamed Labour for what happened in Rotherham.
I've heard all this before. I've lost count how many politicians I've met, Prime Ministers, Home Secretaries.
Sammy Woodhouse, a survivor from the Rotherham scandal, today met the Home Secretary.
I can't help but feel this is, something about politics, which myself and other survivors feel really angry about because we're constantly used for political gain. What we need to start and do is focus on the actual cause, and we're still not doing that.
For more than a decade, our politicians have pledged to eradicate the crime of child sexual grooming, but many victims are still left waiting for justice. David Rhodes, BBC Look North, Rotherham.
Let's bring you up to date with some other stories coming into the newsroom this evening. A man jailed for 30 years for kidnap and murder will remain in prison after unsuccessfully making a bid for freedom at a parole hearing. In 1991, Leeds teenager Julie Dart was murdered by Michael Sams from Nottinghamshire, who was also found guilty of the kidnap of Birmingham estate agent Stephanie Slater. After a hearing on the 20th of March, a parole board panel has decided Sams, who's now 81, is not suitable for release. South Yorkshire Chambers of Commerce are welcoming the intensifying fight to save Doncaster Sheffield Airport. It was reiterated last week how valuable the airport is for the region in a report published by Doncaster Council. Following the airport's closure in November, conversations are still ongoing with one option, including the council leasing the airport from owners Peel Group. A Sheffield Crucible show has won the highest honour in UK theatre.
And the Olivier, I am absolutely thrilled to say, goes to Standing at the Stars Edge.
And Olivia, wow, writer Chris Bush collected the award for standing at the sky's edge at the Royal Albert Hall, telling the story of Sheffield's famous Park Hill flats and the lives of families who live there. It was originally staged in 2019, then again at the Crucible last Christmas, as well as the National Theatre in London. Well, today it's been announced it will appear not only on the West End stage, but on TV too. Well done to them. What a brilliant result. Now, 3 years ago, we were starting a national lockdown, remember that? Adjusting to a whole new world. On the railways, trains kept on running for key workers, but passenger numbers obviously plummeted, and there were fears they could stay that way. Well, in recent months, there's been something of a return to rail. Now the company which runs services between Yorkshire and London says passenger numbers are returning to pre-COVID levels. Here's our transport correspondent, Spencer Stokes.
York in spring 2020, a deserted station playing host to empty trains. After 20 years of growth, passengers almost overnight melted away. A pandemic destroying old certainties. 3 years on, growth has returned. LNER now seeing passenger numbers outstripping pre-pandemic levels.
We scaled back the train services, the stations were very quiet, and it was a very strange time for everybody.
Did you ever fear that passengers simply wouldn't return?
We did believe that customers would come back. We didn't know when they would come back. And of course, one of the things that changed in lockdown was working from home, and we didn't really know the impact that that would have on the railway. And so whilst we could make plans, we couldn't really be certain as to when would people come back, when did we need to ramp timetables back up, and who was going to come back.
Whilst business travellers have returned, it's the leisure market that's shown the strongest growth. Friday and Sunday are now the busiest days of the week on LNER, with Sundays up around 150%.
There's more people on the train, but I wouldn't say that it's full. It's become full most of the time on Friday or at certain hours.
It's not very often you get a seat now, and you're not guaranteed a seat either, even with your ticket.
It's just a bit painful when it cost us £400 to go to London for a couple of days to see some friends.
Today, York is back to its busy self, and whilst passengers have returned to LNER, some train operators are still struggling. The question now, is that likely to change in the years ahead? This rail expert thinks it will, predicting an upward trend.
We know that only about 1 in 4 people can actually work from home on a regular basis anyway. Most jobs involve people being somewhere, and really we should be providing public transport for them to travel, because driving is very expensive on cost of living crisis and so on. Public transport should be the affordable option. So I think we're going to see ridership at maybe 150% within a few years, because a lot of the changes that we're seeing, a lot of these demographic changes, a lot of the cost of living crisis influences are going to really bite. People are going to need public transport.
The pandemic has had a long-term impact, but the fear that rail would never recover was unfounded. Spencer Stokes, BBC Look North, York.
Now, at the weekend, a memorial was unveiled in North Yorkshire to remember soldiers from the Caribbean who fought in World War II. Around 4,000 men from the West Indies volunteered to join the RAF and were based at Hummonby. I'm joined now by Glenn Parsons. His uncles were volunteers, and Glenn has fought a long campaign for those men to be honoured. Welcome, Glenn. Before we get on to the unveiling, which I know was a long campaign for you, just tell us about your uncles.
Well, 2 of my uncles came to this country during the Second World War, and it was always part of the family folklore that they'd been stationed in Filey. And when we looked into it, we found that 4,000 other Caribbean servicemen had come from the small islands and given service in this country, but there was no memorial, no record of it, really, nothing mentioned in the history books. And really, we started the campaign there in an attempt to put that right. And
we've followed your journey all the way through that campaign. How did it feel on Saturday when you saw that curtain being pulled and that plaque being unveiled after 3 years of trying?
Well, it was a very emotional day, and we were absolutely amazed to find that we could get 6 veterans to come. Their ages range from 96 to 99, and I know that many of them had travelled right across the country. It was very emotional. It was somewhat bittersweet because, of course, we've got the plaque now on display, but our original campaign was to have it displayed in the Filey Memorial Gardens.
Yeah, we will come to that in a moment, but first let's hear from some of the families who were there on Saturday and what this meant to them as well.
My father made the call to come and support the motherland. He was very impressed and loved being British. He loved being part of the Commonwealth, and he answered the call with so many of his compatriots to come and help fight with the motherland.
There were so many years where the people who served in the war were recognised, and they were the white people. And I know that my father and all his friends came here, served in the war, made a contribution, settled here, married my mum, had me, my sister, and so to have that recognised is very important for all of us here today.
So Farleigh Council said that the men from the Caribbean couldn't be on the plaque in the Memorial Gardens because that was for local people. But as we've just heard there, a lot of these men did become local people, and so did their families.
Well, that's right. It's a position which I just can't understand from Farleigh Council. The Mayor was there on Saturday, and hopefully she will have got a sense of the depth of feeling here, and as we've seen in your report, how much it's meant to, not just the veterans, but the families of veterans, to know that their forefathers' contributions to this country in its hour of need has been properly acknowledged.
And so the campaign doesn't end here, Glenn?
Sadly not. We have to go on. We don't want it to come to a position where on Remembrance Sunday, there's Caribbean people being remembered down on Queen Street, where the memorial is, and then other veterans remembered in the Memorial Gardens. That again, simply can't be right. And we hope that the council will speak with us, engage with us now, and we can come to some resolution of this.
Well, we will be following your journey as we have from the beginning. Glenn, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And can I thank Abby as well, Abby Giola, for her support of this campaign. It's been really, really appreciated. Thank you.
Good to see you. Right, let's turn to sport now. It's perhaps best to gloss over Leeds United's 4-1 defeat away at Arsenal, but there were some amazing wins elsewhere. In the Championship, Huddersfield Town turned in a fantastic second-half fight back to beat Middlesbrough. Matty Pearson scoring a quick-fire double as Borough collapsed. The result means the Terriers move level on points with Cardiff City in 21st place. Sheffield United, meanwhile, picked up 3 more valuable points at Norwich. James McKay with the only goal at Carrow Road as the Blades edged out the Canaries to move 6 points clear of third-placed Middlesbrough. Barnsley thrashed Morecambe with a 5-0 win at Oakwell. Devante Cole with 2 goals to earn the Tykes their 7th straight home win. Barnsley remained 4th in League One. And in League Two, Bradford City remained firmly in the promotion hunt with a 3-2 win over Grimsby. Andy Cook settled the game 9 minutes from time from substitute Matt Derbyshire's cross as the Bantams came from 2-1 behind. Now, keeping with a big sports figure, former Leeds Rhinos player Rob Burrow says he hopes a new TV soap storyline about motor neurone disease will help to raise awareness of the condition. MND is to feature in Coronation Street for the first time tonight. Rob and his wife Lindsay have been advising the production team and took a trip to the Corrie Cobbles as well to meet some of the people involved. John Maguire reports.
He's experienced some of the most famous locations in the country. Old Trafford, Wembley.
See the Rovers return, Rob. Want to pop in for a pint?
And today, Coronation Street.
Hi, hello. You all right? Oh my goodness, this is really surreal. So surreal, isn't it? Yes.
Rob Burrow and his wife Lindsay are on set to meet the actors involved in one of the soap's storylines, where Paul, played by Peter Ash, develops motor neurone disease.
Come carry on my game for me, could you? Where are you going? I've just remembered I've got to send some emails that need to be there by tomorrow morning.
In this scene, Paul tries to play darts in the Rovers' return, but realises he has a problem controlling his right hand.
Thanks for the invite to come to the best soap on TV. I'm so happy to be here with my family. I'm blown away from the response I've had, but the Coronation Street will have the awareness on a whole new level.
Diagnosis? Of what?
The story follows the early stages of Paul's anxiety and then the realisation that he has MND.
I think the education around MND and the awareness, and I think, for the MND community not having to kind of explain, over and over again what MND is and about the disease, and I think just having that reality, bringing it into people's living rooms will have a massive effect.
Recent years have seen awareness of MND grow hugely. Rob's story has been a large part of creating that wider understanding. In fact, along with Doddy Weir, they inspired the writer's decision to tackle the issue. And with Corrie now taking the story to its 5 million viewers, it too is joining the fight, banging the drum, raising awareness and searching for a cure to bring about MND's final episode.
To be here actually on the cobbles is quite surreal, and obviously meeting the characters. Yeah, it's just been a quite a surreal experience, but really, we've had a brilliant time, haven't we, Rob? It's been great to have a chat to them, and to see this, what we're watching the story, glued to the telly to watch how the storyline progresses.
Yeah, fantastic, and I know they had a brilliant time, Rob and Lindsay as well. OK, let's go to Paul now. Paul, the weather has been glorious, just in time for Easter holes.
Absolutely fantastic, but Blinken, you'll miss it because there is changes afoot. More of that in a moment. Just let me quickly show you a couple of pictures that you've sent me in the last 12 hours. That was sunrise in Filey, looking absolutely beautiful. That fair weather cloud did take a few hours to clear. That was just up the coast there, Bempton Cliffs at Flamber. Again, that fair weather cloud, but that cleared. And the afternoon, of course, has been cloudless. The address is to send pictures on your screen right now. So tomorrow, make the most of it because we've got clear blue skies to come, but thereafter some rain on its way through Wednesday, which could linger into Thursday. At the moment, it looks like things will pick up in time for Good Friday and into the bank holiday weekend. No heat wave, but it looks still to be a lot of fine weather around. Now, these weather fronts will spoil the weather we're having at the moment, bringing rain into Wednesday. It lingers for a time on Thursday, and then a ridge of high pressure comes in just in time for Good Friday. What you can see on the afternoon satellite sequence, barely a cloud in the sky. This is the cloud that will bring rain on Wednesday, but in the meantime, tomorrow's weather is right there. So it's staying clear, some sunshine this evening, and then overnight looks fine and clear. Now, last night we got down to -4 at Topcliffe. I think Topcliffe could be very similar tonight. Elsewhere, we're looking around about -2, so potentially a damaging frost for those bedding plants if you've put them out already. Let's have a look at tomorrow's high water time. Another glorious day along the coast, a bit on the chilly side, but sunshine all the way. Scarborough at 12 minutes past 4. So it's a frosty start, a cold start, but a clear one. It looks like we'll just see blue skies for much of tomorrow. Lots of sunshine, just a bit of patchy cloud through the afternoon, and highs of 13 or 14, and that is the forecast.
So make the most of tomorrow. That's it from us. Good night.